San Francisco, the city of the Golden Gate, the rolling fog, and the glimmering lights that dance across the bay at night. A place where the tech world collides with deep-rooted history, where Victorian homes lean against glass towers, and where the promise of dreams sits shoulder to shoulder with the weight of urban struggle. But on the night of September 9th, 2025, those contrasts sharpened into something darker. The city that had long lived with stories of resilience suddenly became the stage for one of its most haunting nights. The fog had already begun its slow crawl inland, wrapping the city in a damp shroud. India Basin, a neighborhood stitched together with remnants of industry, community resilience, and a touch of neglect, was alive with sound. A cannabis pop-up event had drawn locals and wanderers, a patchwork crowd of music, laughter, and neon smoke under the night sky. And then, the sharp crack of gunfire shattered it all. 6 people struck down in seconds. Panic in the air, sirens rushing, families calling phones that would never answer. Why did it happen? Who were the shooters hidden in the shadows? And why did so many remain silent afterward, as if bound by some invisible thread of fear? This isn't just a story about bullets fired in the night. It's about the ripples that follow, the unanswered questions, and the city forced to stare into the mirror of its own contradictions. Welcome to the September 9th, 2025 San Francisco shooting. India Basin is not the San Francisco you see on postcards. Here, the shiny skyline of downtown feels far away. The waterfront carries whispers of its industrial past. Shipyards, rusted fences, graffiti-tagged warehouses. But it's also a neighborhood on the cusp. Developers eyeing the land, new condos rising alongside old homes, and a community trying to hold onto its identity. That night, the pop-up event had brought hundreds together. Vendors unfolded tables draped in cloth. Hand-rolled joints passed from one stranger to another. A DJ spun tracks from a laptop balanced on a crate. The air smelled of cannabis, barbecue smoke, and the sea. Young men leaned against cars, their conversations blending laughter with glances over shoulders. Women danced near the music, their joy radiating under string lights that swayed in the breeze. A few older locals shook their heads at the noise but stayed anyway, pulled by curiosity. To the untrained eye, it was just another San Francisco night. But there were signs most ignored. Some attendees weren't there to celebrate. They scanned the crowd instead of joining it. They spoke in hushed tones, stepping away to take calls. They watched the exits. One neighbor, later interviewed, said, "It felt tense, like people were waiting for something. You could feel it in your stomach." But the crowd didn't notice. The music was loud, the fog was thick, and the city was alive, until the silence between beats became the stage for something unthinkable. What the community didn't know was that this gathering had already been marked for violence. It began like a ripple, a pause in conversation, a faint crack that some mistook for fireworks. Then the second shot, and the third. Screams, shouts, people running in every direction. Cups spilled, tables overturned. A woman clutched her arm, blood soaking her sleeve. A man fell to the ground, gasping, unable to move. Chaos became the soundtrack of the night. Those who lived nearby remember the sound vividly. It was sharp, metallic, bouncing off the walls. I knew right away it wasn't fireworks. It was death. 6 people were down. The rest scattered like shadows. The shooters, already gone, vanished into the fog before anyone could truly register their faces. Police cars descended within minutes. Sirens screamed across the city, lights flashing against the steel and glass of nearby buildings. Officers found the aftermath. Bodies on the ground, shell casings glinting under street lamps, witnesses too shaken or too scared to speak. The silence of the living was louder than the shots themselves, and investigators would soon realize this silence wasn't by chance. The news broke before dawn. 6 injured in late-night San Francisco shooting. Community shaken after violence at India Basin event. San Francisco woke up uneasy. Parents walked children to school with eyes darting at every sound. Shopkeepers along the basin muttered about closing early. The mayor held a press conference promising justice. Police vowed to leave no stone unturned. But behind those words was a city that knew the truth. San Francisco had seen violence before, and justice was never guaranteed. Families of victims stood outside hospitals, praying, waiting, bargaining with fate. One mother sobbed into reporters' microphones. "This city is supposed to protect us. Where were they when the bullets started flying?" Online speculation ran wild. Was it gang-related? A bad deal? A warning to rivals? But in living rooms and coffee shops, the conversations were quieter, darker. Who's really running this city? Who's pulling the strings behind the violence? And why did so many people know something was coming, but say nothing? The fear spread faster than the facts. And that fear was exactly what the shooters wanted. Detectives knew one thing from the start. This wasn't random. Forensics teams recovered dozens of shell casings. The caliber suggested at least 2 weapons. The angles told a story of coordinated fire. Attackers positioned to trap the crowd in chaos. Surveillance footage, though grainy, captured shadowy figures slipping through alleys moments before the shots. Their movements were quick, practiced. Phone records from nearby towers revealed clusters of calls exchanged minutes before the shooting, many tied to numbers already flagged in prior investigations. This wasn't spontaneous. It was planned. And the victims? 2 of the 6 weren't just unlucky bystanders. They were connected, one to local crews known to clash over territory, another rumored to have debts tied to illicit deals. Detectives began piecing it together. This wasn't about one night. It was about control. But control of what? The cannabis scene? A broader criminal network? Or something the public couldn't yet imagine? The deeper they looked, the darker the picture became. In cities like San Francisco, not all power is visible. Beneath the skyline of billion-dollar companies and tech wealth lies another economy. One of shadow deals, silent wars, and quiet threats. The India Basin shooting was no exception. Investigators learned that the pop-up event wasn't entirely innocent. For some, it was a marketplace. For others, it was a show of presence. A message: "This is our turf." Whispers emerged of rival networks, each eager to dominate the cannabis trade, each wary of losing face. The shooting, some said, was meant as a demonstration, a reminder that behind the city's polished facade, shadows still ruled. But the silence of witnesses was louder than the whispers. Nobody wanted to talk. Fear was thicker than fog. One community leader admitted anonymously, "People know who did it, but talking means painting a target on your back. That's the reality." And so the police had fragments, pieces of a puzzle, but the full picture remained hidden, until a witness appeared with something investigators couldn't ignore. He walked into the precinct alone, eyes darting, hands trembling, a crumpled envelope pressed to his chest. Inside, photographs, blurry, grainy, but enough to make detectives lean forward. Faces in the crowd, glances exchanged, weapons barely visible under jackets. The man whispered, "It wasn't supposed to be like that, but they wanted to send a message." The photos linked to individuals already on law enforcement radars. Men tied to earlier unsolved shootings, names that kept appearing in confidential reports. Suddenly, the threads tightened. The September 9th shooting wasn't isolated. It was part of a chain. Retaliation feeding retaliation. Shadow networks flexing their power in the most public way possible. Detectives now faced a chilling reality. If this was a message, the conversation wasn't over. The question wasn't if it would happen again. It was when. Weeks passed. Headlines faded. But the community didn't forget. Businesses near India Basin saw fewer customers. Survivors carried scars, physical, emotional, invisible. Families mourned in silence, placing flowers at the site. The fog rolled heavier. Nights felt longer. Whispers carried further. Detectives admitted privately, "We don't know how deep this goes." And that's the problem. San Francisco moved on, at least on the surface. But beneath it, fear lingered. Conversations cut short when strangers approached. people crossing streets at night, parents forbidding teenagers from gatherings. The city had seen violence before, but this felt different. This felt like a warning, and warnings, if ignored, tend to repeat themselves. Months later, the case remains unsolved in the public eye. Who ordered the hit? Why at that event on that night? And why did the city remain so quiet afterward? Some believe it was a local turf dispute. Others think it was connected to larger networks reaching beyond San Francisco. And a few whisper darker theories, that those who could answer the questions had no interest in speaking because silence keeps them safe. But silence does not erase memory. The victims' names are remembered by their families. The community still marks the anniversary. And those who were there that night still hear the echoes of gunfire when the fog grows too heavy. And you, watching this now, must ask yourself, what really happened on September 9th, 2025? The San Francisco shooting is more than a headline. It's a reminder that cities are not just skylines and stories of triumph. They are also shadows, secrets, and scars. That night, 6 people fell. Countless others carry the weight of survival. And the rest of us are left with questions that may never be answered. But sometimes, the unanswered questions are the ones that haunt us most. If you're still here, subscribe. Because stories like this deserve more eyes and more voices. And now it's your turn. What do you think really happened that night? Was it a deal gone wrong, a targeted hit, or part of something bigger still hidden in the fog? Leave your theory in the comments, because somewhere out there, someone knows the truth.